Bravo.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the very first Serenade of Music featuring Ackerman Wines. My name is Joe Hind. I'm the Hospitality and Sales Manager for Ackerman Family Vineyards. And again, I want to welcome everyone and wishing everyone healthy and safe regards during this time. While we are in a crisis, it doesn't stop us from enjoying the finer things such as wine and music. So we really want to thank you again for joining us today. So just a few notes before we begin. I want to let everyone know that I will be muting everyone's microphone during the performance so we don't have any outside sound interference when we get into the music and the presentation. And you're welcome to ask any questions during the performance in the chat section. So if you look at the bottom of your viewing screen, you'll see an icon that says chat, and you'll be able to direct your questions to anyone that's in the group. Any questions, please direct them towards the Ackerman host. That'll be myself. And do address who the question will be for Ronnie, our featured pianist this evening. And then we have Lauren Ackerman, our proprietor and owner of Ackerman Family Vineyards, and Leo Tellez, our winemaker, will be joining us as well. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat during that time. So I also want to, without further ado, welcome Lauren Ackerman. She'll be starting us off here this part of it. And before we also begin, I want to make sure that everyone in their viewing screen in the top right corner, there'll be an icon that'll either say speaker view or gallery view. Be sure that it says gallery view on your speaker there. So if it says speaker view, click on that to change it to gallery. So that way when Ronnie or Lauren or Leo are presenting, you'll be able to highlight their sections. And without further ado, I want to introduce Lauren Ackerman, the owner and proprietor of Ackerman Family.
Hello, everyone, and I am so excited for all of us to be here today. I hope you can hear me just fine, and I want to give you a warm welcome. We have people from all over the country today, and so many friends who I miss very, very much, and some new friends as well. And I just want to thank you all for being part of this today. We're super excited about this, our first musical virtual tasting experience. And I know that we will have many, many more to come with all the various friends and aficionados that we have for our wines. So I'm just super excited to have you all here. I want to also particularly mention a particular friend, a very special Gary from Tennessee. Belated birthday. Happy birthday, Gary. I hope you had a wonderful day. I think it was yesterday. And just want to know how much we appreciate you being here with us today as well. So many of you know about Ackerman Family Vineyards, but if you don't, I'll just give you a brief overview and background. The vineyard, the whole wine experience started in buying a 16-acre vineyard in the southern part of Napa, the area called Coombsville, back in 1994. And it was really found by my former husband, and was looking for a horse for me. I happen to love riding horses, and I was particularly interested at the time in Morgan horses. And he looked all over the country and found two, apparently, unbeknownst to me, available in Napa. Came out to look at them, said, gee, those look great. Why are you selling? Oh, wow, they told the owners then, said, the whole property's for sale. He took a 4 or 5 hour tour of the entire property, ended up putting an offer on it, contingent that I'd come back next week. And still not knowing about the horses. And of course, came back the next week. The first thing I saw were those horses. Got up to the front door, said, wow, are those Morgan horses? What a coincidence. And of course, they had all met each other the week before. Go, yeah, what a coincidence. And long story short, that's how we came to purchase the vineyard. And if you look on our label, which is on the Ackerman A, there's a little tiny horse that represents the beginning of that brand and what we're all about. And so our first wines were actually made in 1995. From 95 to 2002, we call our experimental wines. Those were Stonehaven brand, actually. Different name because the vineyard is actually called Stonehaven Vineyard. And we made just a couple barrels just to kind of see what the vineyard wanted to produce, to perfect it over the time. We gave those wines away to friends in the business, sommeliers, chefs, etc. Got feedback from them to do different things, to start the organic process in the vineyard, to go to French oak, to do different kinds of trellising, all sorts of things that we incorporated so that our first actual commercial vintage of our Cabernet Sauvignon, only 300 cases, was our 2003 Cabernet Sauvignon. And today we're going to be showcasing our 2016 a little bit later. So we've had this long legacy of making Cabernet Sauvignon since 1995, all the way up to the 2019 harvest, which is currently in barrel. So I'm excited about that. It's quite a legacy to be able to still be here and making wines. We are, now all in making, we're still small. We're still only making about 1,000 cases or so of different varietals, but we're growing. We're having this phase of our growth was me buying crazy, dilapidated, antique Victorian that I am. You can see in the background the area here in 2010. The house was built in 1888. It was built by a woman, Sarah Heyman, apparently in 90 days for $7,500, which was a fortune back then. And it was, by the time I got it in 2010, I was the sixth owner. It was quite dilapidated and it needed a major remodel, and I was crazy enough to do it. And I really wanted to have a special place to showcase our wines because we really didn't have a tasting salon or place to do events for our wines. And so I spent this, as everybody said, did you watch the Money Pit movie? And I said yes several times to make sure that, I could get this property back up and on its feet. And for me, it was bringing back something just beautiful and historic. That Napa, in that area, in downtown Napa, where this Victorian is located, actually was the birthplace of commercial winemaking in the whole area of Napa Valley. Not many people know that. They not sure where that started, but John Patchett was the very first winemaker in Napa Valley to make wine in 1852, and his first employee was a gentleman by the name of Charles Krug. And Charles Krug, if you know that brand, is the longest running commercial brand currently in Napa, but they were not the first. Something that they not always talk about. I know them very well, so I can say that. But John Patchett did that in 1852. And I like to think of Sarah Heyman, who built my house in the 1888, 89, with her long skirts and horse and buggy, going around doing wine tasting back then, when there was about, in the late 1800s, about 140 wineries in that Napa area, not just downtown, but throughout Napa. So here we are, fast forward all these years later, still doing this, still enjoying this with this house that is a special place for me to have been able to put together. And it really was an inspiration and a place to really expand what we're doing as Ackerman Family Vineyards. As I like to say, the house and the winery complement each other. Right now, of course, the house is closed due to the coronavirus, hoping we'll be able to reopen carefully in the near future. But in the meantime, we get a little bit of view of it here. And Christy is, part of it as well, sitting out in front. And we're just enjoying, being here on a virtual experience, talking about wine and arts in particular, which is also very important to me. That's something I've been in the nonprofit world. I've been involved in a lot of education and arts, and that to me is extremely important, which is why we're super thrilled to have Ronnie with us today. And let me tell you, before I get to Ronnie, also I want to introduce Leo Tellez, who's up here, if you can wave, Leo. And Leo is our winemaker. He came to us in early 2019. His first harvest with us was 2019, but he's also already influenced some of the wines that we have, and he's made a beautiful Sauvignon Blanc, which we'll talk a little bit more about today as well. And for us in general, we have this great team and great experience that we're enjoying and bringing wine, food, and now art, together in a special way. So let me introduce Ronnie. Very excited. Dear friends, and I know they're here as well, Christopher Wiseman and Eric Slay. Hi, guys. I know you're here. They introduced Ronnie Michael Greenberg to us about, I want to say, 2 years ago now. And we just hit it off and got to know each other, and have since seen some of his beautiful concerts in San Francisco and other areas. He is a master pianist for many operas, and let him tell you a little bit more about his background. But very excited to have him today. And without further ado, Ronnie, Why don't you take it away?
Thank you so much, Lauren. And it's so great to see so many friends tuning in here from, all around the country and Canada. My parents are there from Montreal. So a bit about myself. I grew up in Montreal. I am Canadian, but I've been in the US for about 14 years. And I studied in upstate New York at Yale University, all in piano degrees. And I studied piano accompaniment in Manhattan in New York right before moving to San Francisco. So I've been mostly on the East Coast in the first part of my life, but this is really my new home now. And I discovered my passion for wine here in the Bay Area. My brother is a chef. And so growing up, I always had, a love and affinity for culinary arts. But I would say my true appreciation and love for wine started here, just given the culture we have of, wine and, community. So I started playing piano when I was about 8 years old. And our family moved into a new house, the house which my parents, wave, mom and dad, you should wave.
Hi.
In that house is the first old upright piano. Well, not anymore, but now there's a grand piano there. But when we first moved in there, there was an upright piano, and that's what I started off on. I came from a fairly musical family. My dad's uncle was a violinist. My mom loved playing piano. So I would definitely say that I came from an artistic family, and that was a big influence on pursuing music. And my brother was also a jazz guitarist. So it was a very supportive environment, and I'm very grateful for everything that they've, done to help me get to where I am today. I wouldn't have been able to be here if they didn't, give me that kind of support and guidance. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I really believe in the interconnectedness of our senses, of arts, music, food, wine, dance, and so it's really great to be doing this, musical tasting here with all of you today at a distance. We've been doing these kinds of events in person for a while, but it's really refreshing and relieving to know that we can continue to do this and to enjoy this during this, different time and period. How did I find out about Ackerman? As Lauren mentioned, we have mutual friends, Christopher and Eric, who introduced me, to the winery a couple years ago. My first moment and real experience was at the Ackerman Heritage House. And so I didn't taste a drop of the juice before going into the house. So let's just start off with the house. The house, it transports you, it's in a residential area, like right off the main street in downtown Napa, but you would have no idea. And it's there and it's beautiful. And you go in and it just it takes you back to, I guess this Victorian era. And it makes you feel like you're in this intimate space, you're being taken care of. I kind of felt a bit like a prince when I walked in there, honestly. And I think musically speaking, this was a very comparable with the kind of music I'll be playing today by Frédéric Chopin. A lot of his music was known to be performed in salons and in intimate settings. And so that's one of the reasons why I chose his music for today. Let's talk for a second about the wines. So Elizabeth, my fiance, and I have, gone to the French Laundry, to a lot of incredible culinary experiences. And we've, for the last 3 years have been just drinking so much different kinds of wines and tasting different kind of food. And we simply have not found anything like the Ackerman wines. There's not any wine that we've had that can stand to it. We've tried, but literally every single wine that we've tasted from the Ackerman, collection has just wowed us because they are so different. And, sometimes we go to wineries and we love the wine, but we don't find that each wine has such a difference in it. With the wines here, we feel like every single year, every single vintage, they're all different and they're all created beautifully. They tell a story. We can really feel all the work that has been put into creating them. And that's just something that's really special. That's, I'd say, the reason why we're so attached and in love with those wines. So you can imagine our first experience there, going into this Victorian and then tasting those incredible, enchanting wines. It was really something that stuck with us. And, you know, we love to enjoy the wines by themselves with food. You know, at any point, they're versatile. We can have them on our anniversary, like an older bottle. We can have something relatively newer and enjoy them on a Tuesday night. And we love that there's that versatility. You know, you can have whatever experience you want to have. If you want to have like a really deep, philosophical, nerdy wine nerd conversation, you could do that. You want to just enjoy a wine beautifully, we're going to get to one of those today. So that's just a bit of background about, you know, how we got to know these wines and why they, you know, spoke to us so much. Let me just say a few other words about Chopin before we dive in. The composer, he's the featured composer for today. He was born in Poland. So he basically spent half of his life in Poland, but then he left. He lived between 1810 and 1849, which is interesting to note because the Victorian era really coincided with all of that. And, you know, that's yet another parallel that we have with the wine and the music here. He moved to France in the second half of his life to escape the revolution in Poland. And, you know, the French like to call him an honorary French composer. They will proudly call him an honorary French composer any day. The Poles, of course, claim him as Polish. But all this said, his music is just so elegant, just like these wines. They're lyrical and enchanting, and they're vulnerable. And I think, you know, he's incredibly expressive, Chopin, in his compositions, which you will very soon hear. And I thought that that's suitable for the times we're in right now because everyone's feeling a little vulnerable. Everyone's, you know, has time on their hands to think about things that, you know, maybe they wanted to think about or do before, but they couldn't. It's a very vulnerable time for a lot of us. And I really think that this music, Chopin, will bring us together today, along with these incredible wines. So let's jump into it. We're going to start off, as Lauren mentioned, with the Sauvignon Blanc 2018. Wow, we tasted that one last year, or I guess, yeah, last year it was. And it was just so crisp, bursting with flavor. And, you know, who better to introduce this wine and tell you more about it than the one who actually created it and made it, the winemaker, Leo Tellez. Take it away.
Thank you, Ronnie, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's healthy and safe. In my glass, I have the 2018 Sauvignon Blanc whole cluster press, fermented as stainless steel. We have a lovely bouquet of stone fruit, a lot of nice citrus notes with a beautiful, round, rich mouthfeel with bright acidity. Just a lovely wine for a nice spring day like today, or it could be enjoyed before a nice dinner, a nice meal. I'll let you take it from here, Ronnie, and thank you for the introduction.
Thank you, Leo. Absolutely. Cheers. So for those of you who have some of this wine, feel free to give it a little smell, give it a little whiff, little swirl. Kind of creates a little magic when you take it in like that. To me, this Sauvignon Blanc has all the incredible characteristics that good Sauvignon Blancs have, but it has this extra richness to it, this extra like thickness and roundness to it. And so I wanted to choose something, you know, to start off by Chopin, something kind of equally rich and something festive for us to enjoy, to kind of lift our spirits up here. So this is the, if I translate into English, Brilliant Grand Waltz, or in French, Valse Brillante, Grande Valse Brillante in E flat major. If you have room to dance and want to waltz, feel free.
Bravo.
Wow.
Yay. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much. You know, while I was playing, I was tasting the wine in my mouth and I realized that it's almost like fuel. It gave me like a kickstart. Of course, if I have too much of the wine, it can have negative consequences towards the end of the recital. But I usually try to just take just the right amount, just to smell it, get a little of the taste on the palate. And I really do believe that it helps me. Like it helps me when I pair it, and it almost makes me experience the music in a new light and in a new flavor. So yeah, rich, grand. You know, this is a bold Sauvignon. It's not too light. It's like it has a lot of character, and I think it's definitely something to enjoy for a party as well. You know, let's just say it, for a party and on a Sunday or a barbecue. You know, I would totally, you know, drink this to start off. So cheers. Lauren, how did that make you feel?
Well, I mean, thank you for that. It was beautifully done and a super lovely combination, I think. And for me, as you were describing the wine and describing, the Chopin, who is one of my favorite, composers ever. I really could see how the two were really well matched and well suited to each other. And so for me, that liveliness, the freshness, the kind of upbeatness, if you will, for lack of a better term, was, really showcased that together. So thank you for that, Ronnie. I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. I forget to mention one of the reasons why we chose Chopin was also because this is, I had my birthday just a few weeks ago, March 26th, and on Facebook, I saw that Lauren was having her birthday on March 27th. So I reached out to her and I was kind of doing these videos for people for their birthdays because I was just kind of getting a little bored at home and thought, why don't I use my creativity and to spread some joy? So she told me that her favorite composer was Chopin. So that's how I know. And that's, it also just happens to be a great composer for these wines and for everything we're, experiencing during this period and for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed that first wine. Did everyone get a little sip of that Sauvignon? Is it treating you well? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I'm just going to take a little sip of this one before we move over to the next one because I'm not ready yet to say goodbye. Just give me one.
Awesome.
So we are now going to move up to the second wine. And this is the 2017 Alla Vigna Tosca. What a beautiful name. I could just say that name all day. I work at the San Francisco Opera and we speak in Italian all the time. This name, just the name, says already so much. So, Lauren, could you tell us how and when did the Alla Vigna Tosca come to be a part of the wine portfolio at Ackerman Family Vineyards?
Absolutely, and it's so interesting because it actually was an experimental wine, first released in. You just happen to have a glass there. First released in 2007, and I don't know, those of you who know Napa, one of the big events that we always do in Napa Valley is called Premier Week. Premier Napa Valley is when all the folks from all over the country, and in fact some parts of the world, come from the trade aspect to look and try wines that are one of a kind. And we decided in that year to participate with creating something different, not just a straight cab, which everybody else had at the time, but to create something kind of special. And it was inspired by being in Italy, which I adore and love to be there as much as I can. And unfortunately, they're going through difficult times right now. So in spirit, I'm glad we can talk about this wine because the super Tuscan style of wines that I experienced when I traveled to Italy really got us thinking at the time, could we create something similar in California? It had been done before, but not necessarily well, I should say. And it's hard to create actually, because we are limited by Sangiovese grapes in the Napa Valley. There's not a lot of them, more Cab than there is Sangiovese. But we found some and put the two together. In those early days, 2007 was 60% Cabernet and 40% Sangiovese. We presented it at Premier Napa Valley that year, got great accolades for it. So we decided to actually make a new rendition of it and call it Alla Vigna Tosca, which means in the spirit of Tuscany, which is inspired by the trips that we had had back in Italy way back when. And we hadn't made it every year because, again, Sangiovese grapes are difficult to come by. So this, but every time we have made it, it's always slightly different. It went from 60-40 to 50-50. And then this particular vintage, which is the 2017 vintage, is 70% Sangiovese and 30% Cabernet Sauvignon. And that's because that particular year, 2017, those Sangiovese grapes, beautiful spiciness, kind of a just a full like mouth palate kind of opening, anchored by, if you will, the deep berry minerality of the Cabernet coming from our Coombsville area, which tends to be a cooler area, not so fruit forward. So the two blend really well together. And for me, this is a wine that you can take, every day, and if you want to, or go to wine for me with pasta and shellfish and sausages, if you do that kind of thing. Those kinds of things go really, really well with this wine. So I'm excited that you're pairing it with another Chopin song today.
Absolutely. Thank you for that beautiful description. As I was sipping it in, I was just listening to everything you were saying, and it just like enhanced the already incredible flavor that I was sensing. As you were saying, it's so versatile. You could drink this one anytime with a lot of different kinds of foods, a lot of different kind of, ambiances and social situations. Ideally, you drink it with someone else, or in this time, virtually.
Yes.
But the versatility of it really reminds me of the music of Chopin for the salons, because again, it's the music of the salon is intimate, it is warm, it is romantic. And I have to say, the first time I tasted this in the house with Elizabeth, I just felt like I was on a date. I felt like I was in a castle on a date in this incredible Italian dinner. And there was sort of this like magical quality in it. I think it was what you were talking about, that fruitiness of it, maybe. But
Yeah. A little bit of strawberries and cinnamon and clove kind of in there.
yeah. And to me, it resonated with this one waltz by Chopin, Opus 64, which is the same opus of his Minute Waltz, but that's the fast, happy one. This one it's in C sharp minor. And again, it's just like this one, it's inviting, it's so enjoyable, inviting. And I could listen to this next waltz, you'll hear pretty much any time, like it can always fit my mood, no matter where I am at. So feel free to get another smell and taste of this one before we enter to the C sharp minor waltz by Chopin. Many of you will probably recognize this one. You might have played it when you were learning piano. Your brother or siblings or cousins might have played it, or classmates. It's a very popular one. And it has this beautiful section in the middle of the piece that turns into a major key. So so just to give you an idea, Chopin does this a lot. A lot of his music is in sort of like a minor, slightly sort of darker, deeper key. And then out of that, he will shift over in the middle of a piece to a major key, and like the sun comes out, and suddenly it's so just velvety and, sunny. Mm. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that. So yeah, it has also some, you know what it is? The other flavor that I think that I was, um, for, when I started playing the music, it reminded me nostalgic. There's sort of this kind of like nostalgic quality, almost like it's not that you're having the date now, but you're remembering a date that you had. You're remembering this romantic date that you had somewhere in this like really pretty, beautifully lit, candlelit dinner somewhere. And then the sommelier came and gave you this just wine that like changed the entire evening in a way. So yeah, how did that make you feel, Lauren?
I can feel that with you when it just comes through the keys, and I just, it was just a beautiful match, I think, to the richness of the wine, the body of the wine, and the kind of the fullness. And I, sense that in the fullness of the notes. And that is one of my favorite, Chopin songs all time anyway. So I will now forever know that Ella Vigna Tosca and this particular song will always go together. That will always be my thing. I'll have to turn it on somewhere when I'm drinking this wine. So, but I just can't thank you enough, because it's beautifully done. And, it just makes you feel good. It makes you feel happy. And I think that's really important right now. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel the same way now about wines and associations that we make with wines and experiences. And so, all these pairings, it's like, even when you have food, you can remember how, oh, wow, like that one wine I tasted, I need to have it always now with this specific food, or it just kind of, that pairing is something you get attached to. And now when I taste wines, I often hear music. I'll remember, oh, that's what I was playing when I played a similar kind of wine. And like, that's it. It helps me almost classify the wines. When I taste new wines, I'm like, oh, that's the kind of feel it has. And I make this cross association between, music and the way it makes me feel and the attachment that I've made. Kind of like synesthesia for color and sound, but like this is sort of like sound and flavor.
Yeah, true. Exactly.
So
Beautifully done.
yeah, thank you. So we are now moving on to our third and final wine. You are all welcome to, continue drinking later on, but for the sake of our tasting, this is our third and, final ultimate wine. I believe I tasted this also for the first time when Elizabeth and I came to the Heritage House, and it has an incredible structure and depth. And I wanted to ask you, Lauren, could you tell us a bit about your passion for Cabernet?
Well, these wines, the Cabernet that are 100% Cabernet, are really the roots of the whole reason why I'm doing the wine business. Cabernet is, as they say, is king in Napa. It's the climate, the terroir that is throughout Napa really resonates in these kind of wines. And we are finding throughout the valley that these kind of wines obviously are rivaling what you can find in France and Italy and Spain and other parts of the world. But for me personally, as I mentioned earlier, where we are in Coombsville, we made wines from 95 to 2002 just to experiment. The first vintage, commercial vintage, was the 2003. And before I tell you a little story about the 2003 that resonates with me, part of our history, Coombsville, if you're not familiar with the Napa Valley and how it's structured, is made up of 16 sub-appellations, or AVAs. And Coombsville is the final appellation made so in 2011, after 9 years of getting approvals that it was a unique and special terroir for wine, which it is. And what makes Coombsville unique is that we are closer to the bay, to the oceans. We get this beautiful, typically cool nights, fog a lot of times. We have typically also a longer hang time on the vines for the grapes. They are, not as many heat spikes as you get in northern part of Napa. So we have a nice long temperature controlled, if you will, by the weather, that doesn't create high sugars. So therefore the wines typically have lower alcohols, and 13 to and a half to 14.2 is typical now over 26 years of making wine. And what that does to the wine itself, it creates this deeper minerality, more cocoa and spices and leather, more Bordeaux-like in its structure. And that leads me to my story with the commercial, with the first 2003 Cabernet Sauvignon. A dear friend of my former husband was and still is Lord Jacob Rothschild, who is the English lord as part of the Baron Philippe Rothschild and Baroness Rothschild of France, Mouton and Lafite wines, obviously very, very famous special wines. And it was well known that Lord Jacob despised, literally underlined, California Cabernet because they were these, at the time, big fruit forward, higher alcohol, very jammy kind of structural wines, which was the style at the time. Coombsville wines were not on the radar in Napa at the time, but certainly for French, Francophiles, the California style wasn't quite well received. It was more that Bordeaux structure. So it happened that one of his business managers came over, Christopher Campbell, stayed with us at the time, enjoyed the wines, took some back, and he did a blind taste testing with Lord Jacob Rothschild in a paper bag. And Lord Jacob could not place this wine. He thought it was French. And he didn't realize that it was a California Cab. And when he did, he was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is like a Bordeaux style. And fast forward in 2008, I was able to travel to Lord Jacob's beautiful 18th century manor called Waddesdon Manor outside of London. Beautiful, spectacular. And they have a wine shop there. And I got to travel there with all my personal mentor and icon, Margaret Mondavi, who is a dear, dear friend of mine. And we went down into the wine shop, and there in the wine shop, which was only Lafite and Mouton wines and Opus One wines, because that was the collaboration between the Rothschilds and the Mondavis, there was a sign in the wine shop. And the wine shop sign said, the Napa Legend and the Napa Newcomer. And the Napa Legend was Opus One, and the newcomer was Ackerman Family Vineyards. And we were the only non-Lafite, Mouton, or Opus One wine that he sold in his wine shop. And I was just like floored. And I figured, okay, well, this was a pretty ominous sign that maybe we'll do okay. So, it was quite a special event for me personally. And I have a picture. I have to bring that picture out somewhere and post it somewhere, because it was really a special moment. And I knew that these wines and what we have fast forward today, the 2016, is continuing that legacy of wines from this Coombsville area that have this beautiful, deeper minerality and structure to them that really resonate with chefs around the country because they go beautifully with food. In fact, the very first chef, I'll tell one quick story, was Victor Scargill. Victor Scargill, a famous chef here in Napa. He bought 2 cases when this wine first came out and did a special dinner at a fish restaurant called Go Fish by Cindy Paulson. And he created a dinner for the board members of Boeing using our Cabernet Sauvignon with tuna steaks, which I'd never heard of that combination before. But he said because these wines don't compete with the food, they're really enrich it and enhance it. It was a natural combination. So that to me was another early sign that said this is pretty fun and exciting to pair it with all different kinds of things. So there you go. There's my story.
That's incredible. I mean, what a journey. And, I remember when I heard you first speak, I just think you're an incredible speaker and you're an incredible storyteller. And that's so special because the wines tell a story. And I think part of the reasons why they tell a story is because you tell a story. And it's all connected. The team that you have and the Ackerman family and the wines, I really do believe there's a correlation. Much like in an orchestra, you can have really great musicians and a great conductor, but if there isn't, something that you reunites the whole orchestra together, then it isn't really a harmony. And that's what I would use, the word I would use to summarize the wines. There's harmony in your wines. There's not only melody, but I think even more importantly, there's a sense of community and a sense of harmony. And so this leading us to our final piano selection here by Chopin, I think it's fair to say that we've gone up in weight class here with this third and final wine. And so I thought I would want to maybe just give a little bit of a kick on the gas pedal here for this last piece. This is the Fantasy Impromptu, which has a lot of really fast flying notes, and it moves quite quickly, but it's always consistently moving forward, and it's quite dramatic, and it still has that structure. You have the dramatic parts of the piece are in the beginning and the end. It comes back, and that middle section takes you to dreamland. It takes you to sleepy time, just dreaming of a completely different place. And it really takes you by surprise too. And that happens to me when I drink this cab. I'll be drinking it. I'll be noticing the structure. I'll be noticing the sturdiness of it. And, at one point, if I let myself go, I can easily just start daydreaming or, letting my imagination wander off in some kind of memory of some. So Fantasy Impromptu by Chopin. Again, he wrote this in the 1840s, and so right in the middle of that early Victorian period. And I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, bravo, Ronnie. Bravo. Wonderful. Again. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Wow, that piece is really a whirlwind.
Also another favorite.
Wow.
Cheers to that. That's awesome. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So this is one you also.
Oh yeah. Now this will forever go with the 2016 cab. So there you go.
What?
I now know what I'm going to play every time I drink those ones. So
There are a lot of beautiful Chopin pieces that I'm sure we can pair with this, but I think for today, this one really, did you feel how that middle section just kind of, time just kind of stops?
yes.
You sort of, it's a bit like what's going on right now. It's almost like we've been all going full throttle in our lives, going to work, you know, getting married, going to the bank, whatever we're doing. And now suddenly, you know, we just stopped and we have a moment to reflect and to feel things. You know, it's have some introspection and some, you know, talking to people we haven't spoken to in a long time, and just we have time to do things now that we just didn't have to, maybe that we didn't make the time or didn't have the time, maybe a combination before. And I really feel like that middle section of this piece here, it's like every time I play it, I can always do it slower and slower. I feel like I should do it slower because before I know it, we're going to be back going full throttle and, you know, just moving ahead at the speed that we're used to. Well, I'm really glad that these pieces resonated with you, Lauren. And I think this concludes the musical portion of our tasting today. However, I was gonna ask to see if there's any interest to have another hit. Oh, I'm seeing some thumbs up.
Yes. Totally.
Encore. Encore.
Encore.
Absolutely.
Well,
Encore.
because we're staying, because today is dedicated to Lauren's favorite composer, Chopin, I think I'm going to stay within Chopin world. And I wanted to choose a piece that really comes full circle here. It's a piece of music that really inspired me to pursue playing the piano. I know that's a big statement to make, but I've always known that. And I could see my parents are trying to, they're anticipating which one it is because I think they know which one it is. So when I was about, I don't know if I was 9 or 10 years old, somewhere around there, we had these CDs, you know, back then. And there was one CD of all the Chopin piano etudes, studies. These are like really technical pieces, really virtuosic and difficult ones. And his Opus 10 number 1, like the first one he ever wrote, when I heard it, it was just notes flying across the piano. I just remember thinking, wow, that is the most incredible thing I've ever heard. And how could a human do that? And I want to do that. And I thought, if I'm living this life, like I already knew at that age, like I will dedicate myself and time to play that piece, no matter what it takes. So that's the piece. And I wanted to dedicate it to you, Lauren, because, you know, I think that's something we all admire about you so much, is that you're a believer, you're a visionary. And in order to achieve anything great in life, you need to have faith, you need to believe, you need to have a vision. And so when I think about this piece, which you'll all hear now, it's only 2 minutes long, but I spent 2 years learning it when I was back then. And you know, you've gone through so many challenges with the house, and over the years, I only know a fraction of them, but from everything that I've heard, you know, you're a great inspiration to all of us with your leadership and your courage. And in my own right, I believe that I had this courage. You know, I can't believe I had the courage to take on this piece of music when I was that young. So here it is, Opus 10 number 1. This is a piece of triumph, by the way. When you listen to this, it's like, it's almost like you've arrived to heaven, or you know, it's like the dessert. Everything is beautiful, everything is amazing. You're almost like flying above the world, and you can sort of see everything going on below.
Great.
And I'm going to take a little sip again of that Coombsville before.
Me too.
Okay. Chopin, A2, Opus 10, number 1 in C major.
Magnificent.
Ronnie, I can't thank you enough. That was beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure sharing this musical tasting with all of you and with the Ackerman family. Thank you, Eric and Christopher, for introducing me to them. And I'm just, yeah, it'll take me like a second to process that this just happened. This is really incredible. And, you know, we have all these wines here to continue enjoying. So for all of you who, you know, who don't have any more plans for the rest of your day or are feeling inspired by this, you know, feel free to continue enjoying these wines as we move on into the next final portion of our tasting.
Well, and I just want to personally thank you for doing this. I hope this is the first of many, Ronnie, in you know, we can continue to do this and showcase your beautiful music. And, you know, just thank you for your kind words for all of this, you know, and thank you for everyone that came today. You know, I have to say a couple shout outs because there's some people here that I adore who I haven't had a chance to see very much. And Anna, I'm talking to you because you are just a special person in my life. And the other Ackermans that are here, cheers. I hope you knew you had a family vineyard. I didn't know if you did or not, but thrilled to have you. And Kim Hind, I see you too. Welcome and glad you're here. Gary and Lori, cheers in Tennessee. I know you guys are here. And Jessica, my dear friend Jessica, I miss you, love you. It's awesome to see you. Angela is all the way from Prague, and Eric and Christopher are in San Francisco, and Rob, see you, and everyone else. I just so appreciate you guys being here and supporting us as a small winery. Everyone I know we're all in this interesting time, but I do believe, honestly, this has been an interesting time to really bring us together. And what better way to have beautiful music, wines, great food, great opportunity to connect on different levels. And I am just thrilled that we are able to do this. And to my fabulous team, all of you guys, you guys are phenomenal. Joe and Leo and Christy and Angela and Haley, I love you guys, and you make me look good, which honestly, that takes some doing. And I'm thrilled to be able to work with such a great group. And Bing, I know you're there. Love you too. Miss you. And it's just a special thing to be able to do this. And thank you all for spending your time today to enjoy this. And Ronnie, thank you so much for dedicating your time and being with us. We can't thank you enough for creating this with us.
Thank you. I couldn't think of a better place to be, honestly. So.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you. And with that, I guess if anyone has questions or anything, Joe, can we do that?
Yes, absolutely, Lauren. We do have a few questions from the crowd, but I do also want to thank Ronnie again for his magnificent performance. The music was a true serenation, and it really emotionally paired well with the wine. So I really want to thank you on behalf of the Ackerman team and everyone that joined today. Really wonderful, spectacular performance. And Ronnie, we'll start with you. We do have a few questions for you. And most importantly, as a very talented musician, you do find inspiration from other music. What type of music do you listen to outside of the music that you play?
Very good question. So my go-to music is bossa nova because I can listen to it anytime. It could be kind of background music. I find it very relaxing, but I can also really get into it, dance to it, sing with it. So again, it has that versatility, and I really appreciate that. So I'd say bossa nova. And then in terms of like other styles of music, I really like Seal, the singer, and that kind of style of like soul, rock, funk combination. Like that kind of music, it just makes me go crazy.
All right, well, that's fantastic. And I do actually believe Lauren is a big Seal fan as well. So it's another thing you share in common there.
Absolutely. Kissed by a rose, right?
Absolutely.
So.
And Ronnie, another question too, like what inspires you artistically? Like where do you find your ebb and flow, if you will? Like what really brings the magic of the music from your hands to the piano?
Right. For me, it's something that's so deeply ingrained from when I started off, playing piano from such an early age. The challenge of it, there's always been it's so beautiful for sure. But I think what drew me in was the challenge. Like, as I played that last piece, I always appreciated a challenge, something saying like, could you do it? Yeah, I want to do it. I'm going to prove you that I could do it. There's something about that I love. And so that's I'd say sort of one side of the coin of inspiration, and another side is really just how it impacts people. I really believe in, having seen how people respond to music, in my concerts and in others. I just feel like I have this responsibility as well to just, with my gift and my music to share that with people. So I'm so happy to be able to do it for the first time during this pandemic, with this medium, because sharing that music is really so important. And I get inspired by other people. I get inspired by other people's talents. And when I meet people and I see how, incredible they are at what they do, that inspires me to want to also do what I do incredibly.
Yeah, very good. It really shows as well. I mean, you definitely present with your words, and it really shows in the actions of the piano playing performance that you put for us. I mean, really, again, remarkable job. And thank you again. We really love to find out the magic behind the artistry there as well, too. So thank you again, Ronnie. And again, amazing performance. And Lauren, I'm actually going to come over to you now. So we really got the full Ackerman story, but one of the things that we all really want to know is what is Lauren Ackerman enjoying with these current times? We're all sheltering in place. We're certainly enjoying some comfort food, but your son, Alex, certainly has been cooking quite a bit out there. So we really want to hear a lot more about that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And his cooking, my son's home from college right now, and he's still working very hard on his physics. But in between, he went out and got us some new chickens. So we're raising chickens now, and he has been building and making an incredible garden. We're going to have more food than we know what to do with at some point, which is awesome. And we'll be giving that away to a lot of people, I hope, locally. And then, of course, he it's so funny because he likes to bake a little bit of bread. Well, in Alex's world, he went out and bought 200 pounds of flour, 200 pounds of flour, and he has been baking French rolls, brioche, sourdough, all sorts of things. And we have been eating croissants and everything. And of course, now I'm having to walk 5-6 miles a day to keep up with it all. But he's been cooking for us and for he and I, and it's been wonderful, wonderful to have him. And it's just been, if we have to shelter in place, we couldn't do it in a more beautiful place to be, which is Napa Valley. And I'm fortunate I'm on the vineyard, 16 acres, and able to do that, watching the vines starting to grow. But every night he's cooking us, various things. He did a fabulous meatloaf, and he's done these killer burgers. But last night it was Philly cheesesteaks with, French rolls and the whole bit, all handmade. So I'm not starving. I am. I should be starving because I'm eating way more than I normally do, but it's all good. And with the best part of it, of course, is being able to spend this time with him. He's 24 now, and be able to spend that time with him these last month or so, couple months now almost. That I can't get. So that's really, really good. And we just talk about wine business and, those kinds of things. So I've been very fortunate, and, so far so good.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Lauren. I mean, one of the things we all really want to know as well is what continues to excite you about the Ackerman brand. I mean, we've been doing a lot of different virtual experiences, really starting to think more outside the box. But what is it on a regular basis that really continues to excite you?
Yeah, it's interesting times, being a small producer. A lot of the large guys, have the capacity to get through this, pretty well unscathed. But us small producers, we've got to be more innovative. We've got to be more creative, and this is why we're doing these things. And you know, it's been. I'm excited about continuing this, even when we do get back into what quote is normal, whatever normal will be going forward. But I am excited about it because I get to see and interact with people from all over the country, from, Anna's sitting in New York, and here we are, conversing and talking and being able to see each other, which I couldn't hop on a plane as quickly as much as I would like to be able to see her. And, for me, I think that's the fun part, to look forward to innovating, continuing to do that. Obviously, continuing to make more wine that's always reaching for the best that we could possibly make from this little vineyard in this special part of Napa. And, being with all of you who are our friends and our supporters and our collectors, that means a lot to me as well, because that's really, at the end of the day, we're farmers and we're in agriculture business. And the best part about what we produce is we get to share our produce, if you will, with everyone across the world and around the country. And that never is a dull moment. It's always exciting and always fun, because wine is one of those common denominators that we sit down and enjoy life with. And that's why, continuing to drink and make Cabernet and Sauvignon, different wines, is always going to be exciting and important for me. So cheers to that, guys.
Absolutely, and I would definitely say cheers to that as well. Thank you for sharing. And Leo, I'm actually going to come over to you now. So Leo,
Okay.
one of the questions we really want to know, and as a new addition to the Ackerman family, we really want to know, what is the 2019 Cabernet vintage shaping up to be, and how is it looking in barrel?
It's looking lovely. I mean, we have this year we did something unique. We have individual components to work with, like a canvas with different colors. So this year we're going to be blending it extensively with different components and making something unique. I think that's what we're striving to carve and to produce something beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Leo. And we really respect the artistry behind the winemaking as well. And we're very excited for the 2019 vintage. And thank you for taking the great care to shape that for us as well. So that's all we have for the questions on that. And I will again thank everyone for coming out this evening. I do actually want to take a group shot of us all together so we can always commemorate there. So if you have your wine glass in hand, if you could please raise your glass in cheers, we can take a group photo. Just give me one moment here.
I love this. This is awesome.
All righty. All right, and I'll give us a countdown in 3, 2, and 1. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you all.
Well, yes, thank you all
I
very
can't thank
much
you
for
enough.
attending.
You know, this is why we do what we do too. This is part of what it's all about. So thank you all for being here. So appreciate it. To my fabulous team, thank you guys. And, you know, we're going to do a lot more to come, guys. We're very excited about this. So stay tuned. Love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Jessica, Gary, Lori, everybody, just Anna, Angela, everybody, Eric, Christopher, you guys just mean a lot. So thank you so much for being here and supporting us like you do. Really appreciate it. All right. Have a good one. Bye. Bye.